This special meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 5:02 p.m. I'm pleased that you have taken time to join us this evening. In compliance with State Government Code on Open Meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire school board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. We have established a quorum. I will call roll. Ms. Knoyer?
Present.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, present.
Thank you. Ms. Pichelle?
Renee Pichelle, present.
Mr. Macias?
Present and welcome.
Mr. Diaz?
Present.
I'm Jennifer Rodriguez, and I am present. And to my left is Dr. Ball, our superintendent.
Welcome, everybody.
The next item on our agenda is the public comment period. This is the time for citizens, staff, or students to provide their comments to the board. A meeting that is open to the public under the Act is one that the public is entitled to attend. However, the Act does not give the public a right to speak at such public meetings except to address their grievances through the proper channels. As a courtesy to the public, the Judson ISD Independent School District Board of Trustees allows time for public comment. Statements and questions from the audience will not be permitted during other portions of the meeting, so please sign up for a public audience if you have comments to present. To have your comments heard tonight, your name and the topic of your comments must be written on the sign-in sheet prior to the start of the meeting, which is located at the rear of the meeting room. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to complete his or her comments. As the presiding officer, I will strictly enforce that time limit. Also, profanity, yelling, inappropriate, uncivil, or discriminatory comments will not be permitted. In accordance with Judson ISD Board Policy BED Local, in the event your comment, in my judgment as the presiding officer, constitutes a complaint or charge against an employee or officer, it will be necessary for me to interrupt you, ask you to stop, and direct you to seek resolution of your complaint through the district's appropriate formal grievance policy, DGBA for employee complaints, FNG for student or parent complaints, or GF for public complaints. By law, the Judson Independent School District Board of Trustees cannot lawfully discuss, deliberate, make comments, or make a decision on any material raised in the public comment period which is not specifically listed on the board agenda for this meeting. With those cautions in mind, we will now be glad to hear the general comments. Dr. Gary West, you are first.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board and Dr. Ball. Soon, there will be discussions about locked doors, vestibules, badge entry locks, annex buildings and portables, and a host of other security measures to help ensure the safety of our students and staff. And while all of these measures need addressing, the reason I am here is to speak about the police presence at each of our campuses. My understanding is that there's at least one Judson ISD police officer at each of our secondary campuses. This is not the case for our elementary campuses, as we do not currently employ enough officers. Based on the published compensation plan of the website, supposing pay based on the midpoint and taking into account benefits, the price point to place one well-trained, well-equipped school marshal at each of our elementary schools would be $1 million. I would like to give that dollar amount some context. This board is either currently or will soon be considering new positions in the district. And while each will have a justification and a need, adding associate principals at the high school, adding specialists and coordinators and directors will increase our budget to the sum of just over $700,000. So for me, this discussion becomes one about priority. I would also argue this. At a time when weapons can discharge hundreds of rounds in such a short time, every moment before engagement with an armed perpetrator is critical. Having a well-trained, well-equipped school marshal would reduce response time, thus saving lives. And I believe the visible deterrent of the marshal would also save lives. Our schools would be safer, and a visible marshal would add to the positive image of our police and our district. Dr. Ball, I believe you are in a unique position. What would happen if every superintendent in our region would commit to a well-trained, well-equipped school marshal in each campus? What signal would that send to our community? What signal does that send to a potential perpetrator? And related to cost, if we don't have a way to earmark ESSER funds, I believe that a bond specific to this issue without any added items would not only pass in Judson, but would pass en masse in the Bexar County region. Coordination between the district and our area could bring about substantial change, and Dr. Ball, you and this board can lead that change. So in conclusion, we have the opportunity to affect change, to think globally and act locally. For just $1 million, we can start creating safer spaces for students and staff by placing well-trained and well-equipped school marshals sworn to serve and protect at every campus. Thank you.
Thank you. That was all of the citizens to be heard. It looks like we can now use the electronic attendance, so let's go ahead and mark our attendance. Thank you. And Ms. Eaton is not present currently. All right. The next item on the agenda is discussion and consideration of action items. Consider and take possible action regarding the adoption of the compensation plan for 2022-2023. Dr. Ball.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Board, for your strong commitment, because I know we've been talking about the budget quite a bit, and we still have quite a few more to go, but I know that you are very committed to continuing these conversations, and I truly appreciate your feedback, the great questions that you ask, and your commitment to getting us through this process until the very end of June. So thank you. Also like to thank some of our staff that's here that's also been giving me lots of feedback, asking great questions, and even giving at many times some great suggestions. So I thank you all very much for that. If you notice, there's very few senior staff members with me here today. We're all trying to stay healthy, but some of us are not at this time. So I am going to conduct this presentation myself with the senior staff members that I do have with me today. So let me just get the presentation, and I believe all of y'all have a copy. Does anybody need a copy? It looks like this. Everybody has one? Yep, okay. So we'll get started. This is a follow-up from the conversations that we had on Saturday. And if you want me to, I can take it from here. So tonight, or this afternoon, what we're going to talk about is the compensation plan. I think it was 2 Saturdays ago we had those conversations. We're going to follow up with some more information, answer a few questions, and hopefully adopt the compensation plan. So I want to remind the staff, though, that there's some confusion when I say the compensation plan. The raises that the board approved, those are not going away. So I know that a lot of times when people saw the compensation plan, everybody got a little bit, alerted and, oh, what does this mean? This is not to talk about taking that away. So that compensation is in effect, okay? So on Saturday, what I had mentioned to the board is that we wanted to take some time to talk about the curriculum and instruction changes, if y'all recall. I had shared with you that senior staff is extremely committed to really making sure we have the support. And over, from what I have heard from the board is, tell us what you need, Dr. Ball. Tell us what you need so you and your team can get this done. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this in regards to what we need and what our requests are. So currently, right now, what we have is a director of early literacy. And she's doing a fabulous job in helping us make some of those changes. And in the Friday notes, I have been sending some of the increases that we see in regards to the beginning of the year, the middle, and the end of the year assessments. And that's what has been the focus for our early literacy right now. But the entire component of elementary needs a focus. So we'd like to change that position to Director of Elementary, but not forget our Director for Secondary. So the Director for Elementary would not be a new position, but the Director for Secondary would be a new position. And you would see it listed, it's the first one on the blue slide right there. But want to quickly call to your attention, because people will see what's on the right-hand side, on my right-hand side, and say, oh, wow, that's a big salary. That is a salary with benefits. That is certainly not what individuals take home. So that's calculated with all the benefits. And I think, if I'm correct, I think we said 12% is about what the benefits is. Excuse me? 20. So a big portion of that, the 20%, is for the benefits. We currently have, and as we discussed, we have specialists. But as we discussed to you on Saturday, some of the specialists are doing everything from kinder curriculum writing all the way to 12th grade curriculum writing. So that's a huge area to concentrate on, putting us at a disadvantage to truly have the support for our campus teachers. As we get newer campus teachers, and remember what we also had stated was that the TEKS are changing. So in order to truly support our campuses, we want to be able to break those down, and you'll see on there in the middle and at the top too, the reclassification of those positions along with new positions that we would need. I'll take one for example. One of them would be the new coordinator for reading language arts, and that would be 6th through 8th. Reclassification coordinator for math, 9th through 12th. Reclassification coordinator for reading language arts, 9th through 12th. Reclassification coordinator for bilingual. What we had specifically discussed was the individuals that would be in charge of writing that curriculum, because that is key to the success. In order for teachers to be able to deliver engaging, meaningful, rigorous instruction, we want to make sure that we're providing them that support through central office. So this would be a redesign for the Office of Curriculum and Instruction. So I want to take a minute there to stop and see if there's any questions, and maybe the questions would come later as we continue to talk about this. But you'll see towards the bottom, new cost for positions, and then you'll see the cost for moving some of the positions that we currently have. This is truly what we believe will help us not meet our goals, but surpass the goals that we have in closing those gaps. Having this type of structure. Most school districts do have this type of structure, and also there was a lot more people in the ERC building before I got here, but when we had that huge deficit, we tried to take the funds from here, the positions from here through attrition, so we wouldn't affect the campuses as much.
Ms. Pichelle? Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am.
I remember when I was still teaching, we had specialists. And so we're going back to having specialists in the content area.
We were asking to move them to coordinators. To coordinate.
That is the title?
That's a title.
But the responsibility
yes, ma'am.
would be the same as it used to be, where they were writing the curriculum for
Working with-
elementary, K-6, and then for secondary, K-5, and then secondary.
Right, so let me go back to that slide real quick. So right there, the new structure you would see, we would have a coordinator for elementary science, okay, which that's K through 5. Elementary social studies, K through 5. Yeah. We currently have a specialist for elementary math, but we would reclassify that as a coordinator. So that would not be a new position. That's a reclassification. For secondary, Most of those are new because reclassification coordinator for secondary science, 6 through 12, social studies, 6 through 12, a new coordinator, 6 through 8, and then the ones that are, they're all important. Please don't get me wrong. They are all critical, but I know that the board has specifically targeted on math, and you've seen our data on math and the gains that we need to make in math, so we would have a coordinator for math 9 through 12, and the coordinator for math 6 through 12 also, and then have the elementary one. That is critical to our success. We have all talked about if we continue to do the same things over and over, we're going to get the same results, and I know that the results we have right now is not what the board wants. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
Okay.
And I'm glad to see it like this. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's going to make it a lot easier for the teachers.
These positions are truly to support our teachers, truly to spend the summers writing the curriculum, being in the classrooms with our teachers, making sure that they understand the curriculum, that they have the tools to teach the curriculum, helping with the assessment. Then once the assessment is done, what's so important is that you take that data and you make changes in what's going on in the classroom.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Macias, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. The benefits, just for my understanding, what does benefits mean? Is that TSR? Is that medical?
The entire gamut from insurance, the TRS that we have to pay, everything that comes out of our check. Scott, do you want to list the specifics?
That's fine.
Okay.
I get the gist of it now. Just want to make sure that my assumptions aren't, it's encompassing everything. And then secondly, I did also support you developing this type of proposal because obviously curriculum is the expertise of our district. So we need to do more, and I agree with you. But I do still want to make it very clear, I will look for a 2-year response in terms of what this looks like, because if this doesn't increase academic output, then something else is happening. And so what I don't want to get stuck with is added positions with no definable mechanism to say, are they working? So I'm saying it with my colleagues here. In 2 years, I'd like to look at this again. Obviously, we'll look at it as we go forward. But in terms of even considering not continuing with the positions if they're not working. Right now, the budget we're pulling is from our operations, or is it from our ESSER budget? These new positions?
From our operations budget.
M&O.
Yes.
Okay, and that's fine.
And one of the things that I would like to add, Mr. Macias, for many of you board members, what I've learned is the importance of data. What you'll get to see at our special board meeting tomorrow in regards to training is a monitoring calendar. I know that the 2 years will be the culminating, part of giving you that data to say, do we continue? But the great thing that we're planning now is that you'll get data so much more often that we'll know more frequently as to how we need to change, whether it's changing the structure, whether it's changing the person, whether it's writing of the curriculum differently, whatever the case may be. Once you see that monitoring calendar, I'm hoping that the board will be pleased that we're going to be bringing data on a very regular basis to be able to make adjustments quickly and swiftly. And of course, at the end, the whole 2 years, say, yes, it worked, no, it didn't, and here's our data. But we'll be having those checkpoints throughout those 2 years.
And I'm comfortable with that, and I do appreciate that, but just wanted to reemphasize that aspect.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
I do want to add one more thing. Mary really wanted to be here, but she couldn't. So please don't take any of my senior staff's absences as them not caring about this or not wanting to be here. They really feel bad that they couldn't be here. So they're probably looking at me and hoping that all I can say is I'm hoping I'm doing them proud.
Ms. Kenoyer, you had a question?
Not a question, I have a comment. I'm very happy to see all this because I know what a difficult job it is for the specialist to do everything that's required. But I'm especially happy to see the new position for a specialist for RTI behavior. That was a learn on my own when I was in the classroom. And having somebody I could go to help develop those RTI plans for some of those severe behavior issues that we have is super important, especially for our newer teachers. So I'm very excited to see that, especially since we've seen a rise in some disruptive behaviors since the pandemic. So thank you for including that.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to thank the many staff members that I listen to that come and advocate, that are brave individuals to come and talk to me. Though I don't think I'm scary to talk to, I do hear from some that I might be. So, but they still come in and talk to me, or they send somebody to talk to me, and I appreciate that, because these things are coming from our staff saying, this is what we need supported. And just like you said, I hear it over and over. We need support with the behavior. Ever since we added the little ones, they truly need to learn, and that was one of the goals as to how do they acclimate to be in school. So when they do get to kindergarten and 5th grade, it's a seamless process for them. And right now, our teachers are having to spend a lot of time with that because they haven't been in a structured environment. And parents will tell us all the time, well, that's not how they act at home. Well, the setting of a school and home, completely different.
Mr. Macias had one more comment.
Yeah, just one more follow-up, and might as well put it out here because obviously it's always important to be as transparent about what we're thinking. But one of the things that does cross my mind, and later on as we go through it, all of the reclassifications, the justification for the increase in their salary. I'm going to assume then that these reclassifications also came with added responsibilities that made the salary increase in those areas. But it's more than just having employees report to them. I mean, I'm hopeful part of what they're getting more salary for is other duties that may be assigned.
Right.
So you would be able to comfortably say that's the case?
Oh, absolutely. And again, if Mary was here, she would bring you those very specifics and those job descriptions. As soon as she returns, we'll still get that to the board so y'all can see them. So for all of these, new job descriptions have been written.
Yeah, I just don't want to see at the end, because I have somebody that reports to them now they're getting paid more as the only reason that they're getting a bump in salary. I'm just putting that out there.
It's specifically the specialists to the coordinators, really nobody reports to them. Those are all more duties that they will be assigned. So the next one has to do with the speech language pathologist. We've had wonderful, healthy conversations about this. So wanted to talk about this information. What you will see is a side-by-side in regards to salary for Judson ISD. Now, this is the salary that we're proposing. In a little while, you'll see how we want to raise their pay grade. And then the contractor salary, the best that we can estimate based on the contract that we sign. So that's why when you look at the right-hand side and you see the contractor, their daily rate for the LSP also includes the overhead. So there's a part of that the company keeps that there's a possibility I wouldn't know exactly what the person sees or not, because that company is also making money, not like Judson ISD. We're not making money from hiring our staff. So when you look at, depending, of course, on the years of experience, on the number of days that they work, the best estimates that we could give you a side-by-side from the $71,000 to the $79,000 that they would get paid at Judson to the $84,000 that they would get paid being a contractor. Now, keep in mind, the biggest things has to do with their flexibility. Things that I don't know is if they get paid holidays, if they get personal sick days, exactly their benefits. But you will notice on the left-hand side, some of the things that we know our employees like, and some of them do choose to work at Judson or any public school because you do have that week off for Christmas, Thanksgiving, spring break. If you're working as an SLP in a hospital or a therapy center, you might not get that time off. But we are proposing a salary increase of different pay grade for these individuals that you'll see in a few pages in just a few minutes. And I'll talk about that a lot more when we get to those pages, but I'll take questions too.
Dr. Ball,
Yes.
I know that Mr. Atkins is not here, but one of the things I wanted to see was the actuals in which what we spent for contract labor, because that would help me kind of just see physically how much money is being allocated to those contracted positions.
I do apologize, Mr. Macias. I put that in my Friday notes. I'll ask one of my senior staff members to look at my Friday notes. It might have been from 2 Friday notes ago.
Yeah, I didn't see it in the last one.
Oh,
It
you
may
know
have
what?
been-
It was a Friday note right after our Saturday session. If somebody could pull that up for me, I sent it either that Saturday night or Sunday night. It was an email to all the board, and I included senior staff.
Was it a total amount?
Yes,
you said?
it was a total.
I wanted to see a breakdown of because the whole thing that's been kind of a question is how many do we contract? And so the 23s come up, less than that, more than that. So the SLPs that we contract, I'd like to know how many we're using.
Yep,
And so,
it's on there. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Or you can keep asking questions,
but
and then
but
as
if
soon as
it's
they
there,
pull it up.
then I don't recall seeing it. But that's fine. I'm asking.
No, I don't mind.
But the bottom line is to understand what that looks like, just so I'm aware.
Yep,
And-
just give us a second, and I do remember sending it, Ms. Armstead sent it to me that Saturday morning, right after we left the workshop, and then immediately, like I said, it was either Saturday night or Sunday, I sent it out, and I'm pretty sure I included senior staff, so if somebody pulls it up for me,
Okay.
I could put it on the screen, or I could talk about it, but
And so, as that's coming forward, and Ms. Bashaw's over telling me that we got it, I believe you sent it. I just obviously don't remember it. But the point of the matter is what our strategic direction is in terms of that.
right. The biggest strategic direction is to show you the increase in the different pay grade and the stipend that we would like to include to make a bigger difference in what we pay them. Let me see, does anybody get lucky enough to find it? It was an email that was sent. It's okay. Oh, look, she has it. Give me 1 second. But if we don't find it, let me know. Because I do remember. Okay, so it started like this, and if anybody of the board member says y'all didn't, then I'm going to apologize to y'all if everybody's saying y'all did not get it. Does anybody remember it? Yes? Okay. Okay, so here we go. We have 1,597 speech students, 273 are transfers. We have 6 district speech language pathologists, 23 contract speech language pathologists, 12 of them are full-time, and 11 of them are part-time. So our projected cost for speech contract services for 22-23 is $2,689,000. That's what it is. The projected cost for speech contract services for this school year was $2,268,000. Projected cost for speech contractor services for 2021. Oh, good. Here it is. Did I send it? Or if y'all want to pull it up and you want to follow along. If anybody wants to, I'll give y'all a few minutes just in case y'all want. I know y'all have to have things right in front of you.
And I would just add, Dr. Ball,
But I still have more if you want more.
no, we can look it up. I just need to know if in that communication it listed out how much each individual received.
Yes.
It does?
So here, do you want me to read?
No, if it does, I'll look it up. I believe you. I just need to know that
Right,
that's...
and if this isn't what you would like, all you have to do is let me know, and I'd be happy to get more information.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, did someone make $106,000? Because that was the general thought.
Right. I can't tell you if anybody from the company did. If anybody from the company...
Well, if we paid them that much.
Oh, no, sir, we
So
only
that-
pay the company. So we
Okay.
only pay the company, then we pay the company. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, or Ms. Armstead, correct me if I'm wrong. We pay the company. What they pay them, I'll never know. The
Okay.
company is responsible for paying them because it's
As
their
long
employee.
as we're not paying them.
No,
I
sir.
realize they have other duties assigned, other areas they're contracted with, and I don't need to know what they're making. I just need to know if we're not competitive enough, because what's happening, obviously, is our SLPs get the brunt of
Right.
when a contractor walks out. And from a retention standpoint, that could be a problem.
I think that what you will see in our compensation plan right now, will make us competitive enough.
Okay, okay. And just one other suggestion. I love your Friday notes. I get them on Friday. I look at them on Saturday. It may have been a long week. You may want to include them in our discussions if it's relevant. That way we have them and we're not having to dig for them, just as a thought.
Absolutely. And I sent it this way because I wanted to expedite getting you the information. So that was my thought. Saturday was the board workshop, and my goal was to get you that information ASAP. I want you to feel that I'm answering your
No,
questions.
again, thank you.
The compensation plan. Everybody should have this. I passed all the beautiful narratives that's on there. There's a lot of beautiful things that I like to read on your own, but I'm going to ask you to turn to page 10. So if you go to page 10, nothing really new, but I know that many teachers want to know, what exactly am I going to make? So that's what this is, with the raise that the board so graciously approved. So that's what this is. Nothing new, nothing deleted, but want to just put it out in writing. Page 11, no change. But let me start off by saying something. Because you're going to say, Dr. Ball, where did you get your ideas from? Where our ideas and suggestions came from was the TASB study. So if you recall, you asked me to go back and look and see to incorporate some of the stuff from the TASB study. Okay, so now I'm going to go to page 13. On page 13, there is an array of plumbers, okay? An array of plumbers, so we want to make sure that we're compensating our plumbers accordingly. So if you're an apprentice, it's different than being a master plumber. So you'll see the different categories right there. Hopefully your copy is highlighted like mine. So that is a change. So
What
now,
exactly is the change? Is it just now there's two categories of plumbers?
there's
Or,
three. The apprentice,
oh, there's a journeyman.
the journeyman, and the master.
And what did there used to be?
None. I mean, I don't say none, just
There was just
plumber.
one category. Okay,
Just
got it.
plumber.
Okay, thank
So
you.
now, in looking at TASB, that, believe it or not, is a hard-to-fill position. A plumber is a hard-to-fill position right now. So in order to get them, compensate them for their skills, compensate them for the training that they've had, breaking it out in 3 different categories.
And nobody will be downgraded, correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am. I have to share with you that in this compensation plan, no one is being downgraded. We do not want to take any money. We want to put more money in people's pockets. Okay? So then if you will move on to the IT, which is page 16. So what we have done is looked and seen through our TASB study where we are compared to other districts, looked at job descriptions, but at the same time, always done what Mr. Macias has shared with me to do and look and see our return on investment for positions. There's been some positions that as people have left, we have looked to see which positions do we really need. Could their duties be absorbed by somebody else, and truly made some changes. So you'll notice on this page that there are some changes, but no one is receiving, Ms. Rodriguez, as you asked, a pay decrease. We've changed job descriptions. I'm going to say all of these came at the October board meeting, but these are changes that it's new in this compensation plan. At the October board meeting, we brought a few that we needed to change, so these are now in line, and in February. The next one is number 7.
Excuse me, Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am.
So the changes are going to be highlighted.
Yes, ma'am. Those are changes. Mhm.
Well, then let me ask you, on
Please.
the other page with the plumbers,
Mhm.
you said that...
I forgot to highlight the journeyman.
That's what I was going to ask
Yes,
you. What
ma'am.
were they before? They were just called plumbers before?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I needed to differentiate to staff why somebody would, or what category somebody would be in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One of the things that we've noticed is that we have not had a assistant police chief. So you'll notice there on page 503, this is different than the other positions that I shared with you previously on the very first page, because once you either are the chief of police or the assistant chief of police, it's no longer an auxiliary position. It's no longer an hourly position. It's a salaried position. So want to go to a very important page, page 18. Okay. Page 18 starts to talk about the coordinators, 505, the coordinators that you just saw previously, the RTI, and also CCMR. We've had very in-depth conversations about the importance of CCMR. CCMR also came up in our goals. That's a position that we don't have and a position that we also need. But the important, not that all of them are important, but 507. 507 is the speech language pathologist. Those are the positions that we previously talked about. So this is moving them up. And I do believe there were a 505 before. Yes, 505. So 507 is where we would be moving them up. So they're actually increasing 2 pay grades. And then we'll talk about the stipends in the next page. Then the 2 other positions that we previously spoke about are in 508, the director of elementary and the director of secondary. Want to mention that before, I'm going to finish this one, then I forgot something. In 508, that's where all our directors fall. I specifically put on there the director of elementary and director of secondary because those are new positions. But that's where all our directors would fall in. One of the things that came from our wonderful conversations is how do we incentivize our principals to want to have a bigger campus? How do we talk to them and say, hey, you grow, so does your salary. So you'll notice now this is brand new, the 507A, 507B, 507C, those right there. And on Saturday, I know this is not new to the board, but just trying to remind everybody, so we've all slept and had a busy week, that this is based on your PEEMS snapshot date. So we're not going to be every time you get more enrollment, you're going to automatically be adjusted. It's based on PEEMS snapshot date. The other reason we feel that that is so critical is because everything that's tied into PEEMS is extremely important to us. Now, another piece on page 20 that the board has asked me about numerous times is to change the scale so there's a difference between if you're the first year bus driver to a second year bus driver, third, fourth, and the list goes on. So really wanted to outline this for the bus drivers. I don't think the bus drivers have seen this like this previously, and I think that this will help them when a person sees and can go right across the scale and say, I have 15 years, boom, this is what I make. Because when you see it from the minimum, midpoint, and max, that's pretty confusing. But I think this will help people to see it a little bit clearer. And just very similar to the teacher, librarian, and counselor scale, where you get to see the years of experience. Now, here's some other great things that we want to do for our district.
I
Yes,
had
ma'am.
a quick question. Sorry, this is actually about the previous, about the elementary principals. Previously, were all of the principals on the 507A plan?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
got it.
And one of the things that we had talked about, and my memory could be wrong, but I think that as a board we had talked about it's a little unfair if you have a campus that has 300, versus a campus that has 1,000. The scope of work is different when you're dealing with 300 kids versus 1,000, and that is our reality of what we have right now. No, great question. Okay, so now let's go to our stipend so we can look at this. Okay, so on Saturday again, we had mentioned the changes that we want to make for long-term substitutes. So we had shared that we needed to, sorry, no, I'm on substitutes, sorry. Page 21. Page 21. Wanted to talk about what our substitute rates would be, because as you know, that's something that we've struggled with. So wanted to increase the certified, that you have a teacher certificate to $145 to make sure that we're incentivizing those people that want to come back and substitute for us. Things do happen. Most of the time it's with assistant principals, but we can't leave our campuses and our principals shorthanded. So now we have a substitute for administrators for long term. This isn't just for a day. If I'm being absent and I need to miss a day. So you saw this already, but again, just going over it. One of the things that we wanted to do is we're hoping we're going to fill all our bus driver slots, but there's people out in our staff that do have the CDL license. And if their schedule permits them and that they can drive for us, we want to pay them for doing those extra duties, and they would be paid on the bus driver scale. Also, Adventure Club, we want to be able to hire students for $10. You know that we are really working to build our teacher program. So if those students want to work after school and help us with our Adventure Club, we will be able to do that. And also making a difference between the aide for Adventure Club at $12 and the computer technician at $14. Again, I know I'm going through this fast, but we did all of this on Saturday. But of course, if you have questions, please let me know.
And Dr. Ball, yeah,
Yes, sir.
I'll stop you before you get to stipends, because I do
Okay.
have a few questions on some of the items.
Yes, sir.
The one question I have is on technology. You did reference that you compared it to other districts.
TASB did that for us.
Okay, so TASB compared it to similar districts.
Yes.
Then that answers that question. Wanted to make sure. And in technology, I guess I need to just ask, you have librarians in the technology field, and I don't know if I was here when that happened or if it happened while I was here, I don't know, but that seems different. Do other districts align their
Yes.
technology with librarians?
Most school districts now are not calling them librarians, media specialists. And I apologize, I have to get to that proper terminology myself. And they are considered media specialists.
Okay. I mean, but librarians is what we have them classified. We don't have them classified as media specialists
No.
yet. And naturally, when I think of media specialist, I'm not thinking librarian. So I think you can have a different type of individual in that role. But right now, our librarians have master's degrees. I mean,
We wrote, and you're correct, and I'll share that with you because I do believe you were not at that board at that time. We rewrote their job description. It was almost a year ago, if I remember correctly. So what we had done maybe 2 years ago, prior to COVID, it was that they were having to share at different campuses. Then we wanted to go back and put those back in at every campus. So at that time, we rewrote their job description so every campus would have one.
yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it's a conversation for another time as well, but it just seems that it's outside if we want to repurpose the position as media specialist. The true sense of a librarian, they just don't seem to be aligned. If we're looking for media specialists, they could even cost less than librarians. Not that I'm advocating that. I like librarians.
No,
But-
I promise you we'll do a report to that because you would be surprised as to how much they have to do. So we will definitely take note on that and bring that back to you.
Right. And then, thank you. Thank
Yes,
you for
sir.
that. In terms of the sub-pay, we're seeing a great amount of absences on Mondays and Fridays. There are districts that actually pay more for the daily rate on Monday and Friday. Do we have that in here as a possibility?
We did do that, but let me see if I had it on here. I'm looking for it right here. Give me 1 second. Oh, yes, substitute rates for Monday and Friday.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure we continued that. We started that, oh gosh, maybe 6-8 months ago, but it is continued.
Is it working?
I'd have to go back and see. You know, the hard part about this year is to say this year was so different. I can't say yet if it's working. It's been quite a difference. So give me this coming year that I'm hoping things will get back to normal, and then we'll see if it's working.
I mean, obviously, because we're open to increasing that or doing whatever needs to work. But this is also opportunity now, too, that I know we'll examine incentives for attendance and stuff like that. We've talked about through as well.
Yes, and all of that, Mr. Macias, is going to be really talked about in that committee that eventually
Sure.
I'll get to talk to the board about.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
No question. Yeah. Dr. Ball, just
Yes,
going
sir.
back a little bit on page 19.
Let me flip to that, sir. Give me 1 second. Yes, sir.
So where are the assistant superintendents on the list? Because I see deputy superintendents,
Yep.
or deputy superintendent.
Yes, they're listed under senior staff. I could change the word if you would like.
I mean, it feels like if we're going to have a listing of actual position, like job titles, having, for consistency, right?
Right, so really the consistency, because what we're trying to do is, like you'll notice on 508, just list them as director instead of every single director. You know that if you're a director, you go on 509. If you are a coordinator, you go on such and such.
Sure.
So I can fix that to be more consistent.
Okay. And then have you normally had senior staff, I guess, that called out? Because that's like a position, not a title per se, but like position, right? Broad category. Is that?
I think I've had it like that. I'd have to go back and look, 'cause I know I've had it that way for a while. I'll have
okay.
to look and see.
It just felt, it didn't feel like it was aligned to titles themselves.
I can definitely go back and fix that.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
And Dr. Ball, and again, you did go through a lot of information. That's why I'm stopping you before you get to stipends, because I did have several questions. So I found another one. The assistant police chief?
Yes, sir.
Was that our lieutenant before?
No, sir. It would be a new
It
position.
would be a new. At the last meeting, I did ask that we had 3 vacant positions to get those police officer positions filled. Do you recall that?
Yes,
That discussion. So did we move forward with that?
With filling police officers,
With
we're
those
working.
with those 3 specifically?
Chief is working on filling them. I can't say if those 3 positions have been filled yet, but I know
Okay.
Chief has been interviewing, and we just currently had another one leave just last week, so she's filling as we get applicants.
Is that the gentleman who went to Harlandale?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that position in my mind is he was the one that was sort of second in command. So I'm just trying to make sure we're not creating a position that we don't need. And obviously I can always ask the chief of police of that as well. But we need more officers naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So the model before didn't work for what reason?
It's not that the model before didn't work. Is this that we feel we should compensate and have the title for that specific position?
Okay.
So you were saying that the lieutenant previously would have been an hourly rate, and this, codifying it this way, makes it a salary?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
But I'm not saying that we don't need the lieutenant position. Do you want me to go to stipends? Okay. Again, a lot of these are not new. On page 22, you will see the recommendations that we got from TASB. So we spoke about those on page 22, and I had shared how that also was taken into account the number of days that they work. Page 23, when you see that one, looks different because we had not specified it like that for middle school. But again, to increase our transparency, we wanted to make sure that we outlined it again just for middle school. If you remember, there was one that was on here that Mr. Macias had said, why does this one fall on there? And we corrected that. I don't know if anybody remembers that. But what's also different is the district-wide spirit teacher. So that is a different position. The district used to have that way before I got here. And I could remind you all of the name later on if y'all wanted me to. But that was something that was there. And remember, the counselor one was on that page. I don't know if anybody remembers. And now we put it at the very top. One of the stipends that was missing in fine arts was the one-act play sponsor stipend. It's not a huge stipend by any means compared to the hours and hours and hours of work that they put in. But in looking at our TASB stipend, that is something that other school districts do compensate, so we want to make sure that they're compensated for. In elementary, we added those positions again to compensate teachers for the work that they do. Mr. Macias had brought up a very good point about having after-school clubs, so we did put in a stipend there for the after-school clubs. Something that had been missing for many years is the Special Olympics. There had been lots of work done in Special Olympics without the stipend, so you'll see that we added on there. Then also a stipend for the LSSPs. You will notice that on there, and that is also a new stipend that's on there. Here we go in regards to really wanting to compensate the teachers for the further learning that they do. So on this, specifically on the right-hand side, a teacher that has a master's degree would get $1,500. A teacher that has a doctoral degree, $500. A master's degree in an assigned teaching field, would get $1,500. It would be a very unique person, but it is the possibility that you could get all those stipends. There is that possibility. There's truly possibly also the possibility that you could also get two out of the three, or at least one of them for having that master's. Then we also talked about the elementary and middle school testing coordinators. That was something that I don't remember if it was a year or 2 years ago, we moved that away from the counselors because we wanted to make sure that our counselors are truly in the classroom counseling. So that would be going to one of the administrators for taking on those other duties. On page 27, you'll see the high school and middle school, very similar to elementary, compensating them for their work with technology, compensating them for clubs, after-school clubs, for both middle and high school. Now, at the bottom of there, those are the incentives that the board has already approved when you gave the salary adjustments. Those are coming from our ESSER funds, and the board has already approved there, but I wanted to still put it on here so I could take this opportunity. I know that our staff has been very, very appreciative of the board, so I know, again, I just wanted to mention it because the staff has reached out to us, again, thanking for full-time employees, the $1,000, part-time employees, $500, long-term substitutes. This is very unique because very few school districts are doing this $400. And then, of course, auxiliary and clerical, the $1,000. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to go back to page 23.
Okay.
The district-wide spirit teacher.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what that person would do.
Right. So right now we need help in the area of making sure there's consistency for cheerleaders, for dance. Somebody that's going to oversee that component and make sure that there's equity and consistency and all our I'll give you a few examples, that all our middle schools have an opportunity for our girls and boys to participate in cheer, that they're doing tryouts equally and fairly at all our campuses, whether it's middle through high school, that we're really giving our students an opportunity to belong and participate. Everything from working on constitutions, working on tryouts, making sure they have cheerleader uniforms that are appropriate. Don't want to shortchange that opportunity for our students, so somebody to be able to oversee that. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Ball, Very, very good. A lot of good information. I think definitely being responsive to addressing some of the areas that we talked about at the Saturday meeting. Two things.
Yes,
There's
sir.
probably more, but like I said, we had a lot of stipends to look through, so let me just break this down. One thing in particular was the potential stipend for staff that have tenure with us. In terms of, we don't have to have it here, but I certainly would like to continue to look at that. You addressed the pay differential with transportation employees, but that paradigm exists on all of our staffers, from teachers that entry to 20 years and having that difference, right? So being able to do more to recognize that seniority, if it's at 5 years, they get just a thank you, or 10 years, or something that kind of captures that. Because I can tell you, and I've told teachers who are at the 20-year mark, we're competitive. We're competitive with a lot of our neighboring districts. But I think there's just something to be said to appreciate them, and that can be done quite easily on a stipend for, $250 or $500 or something that starts to recognize that tenure. And it could be, just an example, just put it out there, everyone at 15 years, year 15 to 16, they get $250 stipends. Again, I'm not saying that's the best number, but that's the concept, to give some sort of recognition to their seniority with the district. I mean,
Right.
so-
Absolutely. And a couple of points, if I may add.
Sure.
One of the great things about working with this board is that you have told me repeatedly that I can come and ask. That I can come and ask. Though I'm asking the board to approve this tonight, I feel comfortable enough with the board that if something were to come up, good or bad, I could come back. I'm looking forward to the way we're going to restructure our committees, because there could also be a request that I was sharing with senior staff that I know of another school district. It's a little thing, but sometimes those little things go a long way, that you get a day off when it's your birthday. You don't have to use one of your sick days. You don't have to use a personal day, but when it's your birthday, you can use that day off. And it doesn't have to be on your birthday, just any day. So through that committee, looking and seeing those types of things, the one that I just mentioned, the attendance, because I don't remember who it was, but there was a great staff member that said there used to be a little monetary incentive. You didn't miss a day, here's your extra, whatever the case may be. So I do see us coming back to the board. And again, back to the board, one of the things that I've always been proud of is that we were one of the only school districts in Judson that our enrollment surpassed what we thought. And if that's the case, if our enrollment surpasses, our attendance goes up, I know that the board is committed to putting more in staff's pockets. And I would come back and say, we got to do more for our staff, because it's because of them that we're able to keep that enrollment high. So though I'm asking for this to be approved, I would hope that the board would give me that leeway to come back and say, hey, we need to do this for our staff.
And that's expected, because I know you put a lot of work, Mr. Atkins put a lot of work in, and our staff.
To the point that I made him sick.
So I recognize that, and certainly think that we can still continue to evolve and grow and grab that. The other real slight recognition, and I'll yield because I can't think of my other questions, would be that this packet, we received it right now when we were here at our desk, but I would have liked it early, because I do like to look at everything and break it down, so I'm not missing something. I'm having to read, and this is the first time I'm seeing it, although we've seen pieces of it before. That would be my only, it wasn't included in our board book, but I think that's an easy fix, if
Yes,
you don't
sir.
mind.
Absolutely. I can fix that for next time. We just, try to go over it so many times. There wasn't a lot of changes from Saturday, so I thought this time it would be okay, but definitely in the future, we'll get it to you earlier.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions or discussion?
SLPs and LSSPs. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, for
Okay.
asking, because I did have one more question and comment. In terms of that, I see 2,000 as the incentive for the LSSPs, and the SLPs are 1,000. What makes that different?
Their degree, and Ms. Armstead could correct me if I'm wrong, their scope of work and the degrees of work that they do and their licensing. Thank you.
And so we're dealing with LSSPs that have more certifications, I guess, or more?
The SLPs have the more okay.
And
Oh, I reversed it? Okay. Sorry, I reversed it.
what should it be then?
The LSSPs. Yes. Okay. Okay.
That's what I'm trying to just distinguish between why the differentiation in stipend between one and the other. If both shouldn't be given the same, or again, what's the strategic point to giving the LSSPs 2,000 but SLPs 1,000 if they're the same?
Right. So from what I understand, their scope of work is different. Okay. Yeah. So that is why.
So their scope of work is different.
Can I ask a clarifying question? This may be best directed to our director.
Sure,
of
Ms.
special-
Armstead?
Yes. So SLP is speech language pathologist, correct? And LSSP is licensed specialist school psychology. They are completely different jobs, correct? Correct. And they're in the same pay category, but they do very different things from each other, correct?
They were not previously. And I think that's what created some concerns. Thank you. So
And of course, Dr. Ball, if we have some follow-up on this, so you'll be open to reevaluating that
anytime,
stipend?
sir. Anytime.
just-
The reason for me wanting to get this out is because we have already, in different categories, has nothing to do with any specific, but we have about 70 positions that I need to try to fill before everybody else fills. And that's from bus drivers, cafeteria, teachers, assistant principal, a variety. And I'm hoping, just like Judson was one of the very first ones in Bexar County to put out the raise, I want us to be ahead of the game on our hiring.
And I'll say thank you. Obviously, this continues to live and breathe, and so we'll reevaluate certain points of it. But I would also share with my colleagues that, you know, we're competing with other districts, and other districts are going to put their compensation plans together. So I would even ask that even in August, if we have to come back to reevaluate that strategy, we should be at least open to doing more. And I'll give an example. I looked at Houston ISD, nowhere near us, right? But I saw that news feed come onto my phone, and I clicked on it, and I really thought it was Harlandale, HISD.
Oh,
And when I pulled it up, their starting salary was $61,500 for first-year teachers. And I was like, oh, good Lord, how can we compete with 61.5?
Do you know what they do?
Well,
Oh, my gosh.
so the competition for that made me just think, you know, we don't know what Northside or Northeast are going to do, and we may not be able to compete with them, but I would like an opportunity to reevaluate doing more if they do, because the goal is to bring and recruit and retain. So
Right.
I don't want to lose teachers to those districts if we can't help it.
right. And I'm going to steal Mr. Diaz's awesome words. Cuando se puede, I'm going to come back here and ask again.
All right. Does anybody else have questions? All right. Do I have a motion? We're voting on this, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I move we approve the compensation plan as presented.
Second.
If I could just take this minute to thank these people that sat right behind me here. They did a lot of the heavy lifting, so thank y'all so much. Thank y'all for this work, and hopefully Bill is watching and is a little proud.
Madam President, if I may, I just want to thank our staff for working so hard on this to make us competitive with all the other districts around us. There's hours and hours of work in developing a compensation plan, going through the recommendations from TASB and from staff, and I think you've done an amazing job. I'm very proud to be able to approve this.
Yeah, we'll keep him. We are keeping him.
All right. The vote passes 6-0 with one absence. And we'll go on to the next item, which is program review for curriculum and instructions. Dr. Ball, did you want to make a comment?
Yes. Dear board members, I cannot steal Dr. Drew Hartopin's thunder. She has planned for this. She wanted to be here. She is sick. So I have to postpone this
Okay.
with your permission
Yes.
because I know she really wants to deliver this, and I need to try to keep her as healthy as possible. She does have a daughter graduating on
Yes.
Saturday, so I need her to rest.
All right. So we will reschedule item 4A, and now we will be adjourning into closed session. So the board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meeting Act. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.076, deliberation regarding the deployment or specific occasions for implementation of security personnel or devices and security audit. The time now is 6:07 p.m. The board will now reconvene, we'll go into closed session. Thank you. The board will now reconvene in open session. The time is 7:09 PM. No final action, decision, or vote was taken while the board was in closed session. There's no action needed for item 6. And so there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 7:09 PM.